Okay, today is December 10th, I believe, 2020. I keep having trouble with this engine is running like super rich. So I opened up the choke on it and tried it, and it seemed good for a little while, but then it killed out again. So I'm suspecting a problem with the float. So I'm going to change the float out with a brass float. I've decided to do that. And to start, to take this apart to get the brass float, I started out with a 3/8 of an inch to take the nut loose here on this linkage, 3/8 inch, and then for this I've got a 5/8 inch for the line, and to hold this big nut where it doesn't turn is 1 inch. Wrong wrench. And you can use an adjustable wrench if you don't have a 1 inch wrench like this one. So you hold that one where it won't move, and then you release this one, and there's a screen in there, and I'll inspect that too when I get the top off the carburetor. But the next thing is to get these, once this is loose, I'll take these Phillip heads, and and there's a linkage here that comes loose once you get the top off, and then I ought to be able to inspect the float. And Mike's carburetor said the brass float is better, so, and everybody has an opinion about which is the best float. And so anyway, I'm going to try the brass float because I'm not sure that the float I have is either leaking or sticking or whatever. So I'm going to do it and then see what happens. And I'm not sure if I have to take these 3 screws loose at the back of the choke or not. I may be able to get the top off without doing that. And of course, anytime you work on this, you got the power off and a fire bottle nearby. Fire's a bad thing, and there was a little gas that came out when I loosened that connector. I may lose the light, so I may have to talk through the rest of this if I lose the light, but I'm hoping to get this off without having to take the carburetor off. And I plan to test the fuel quality and fuel pressure and fuel volume before I put this back together again. And if I have enough light, I'll do that on camera. I may not have the light. It may be too late by then. And there is a ground wire at the back of the electric choke, so I do have to take at least that screw loose. Otherwise I can't lift this off with this wire, this ground wire. And of course the ground is important for the electric choke to work properly. So, and be careful not to drop the screw. I always have problems with that because it's kind of hard to reach back here. Don't drop the screw. And whatever you do, if you drop the nut down the carburetor, if it gets into the intake, you have to stop what you're doing and fish it out, because don't let that nut go into the engine or you'll destroy your engine. The parts do not blow through an engine. They get stuck in the cylinders. Don't ever make that mistake of dropping something down the carburetor. Okay, I got to take this screw loose to get this linkage off, and this other linkage will just slip out. There's 7 screws on the top, and the 8th screw is the longest. It goes, it's obvious which one, where the longer one goes. And I took the screw off the back for the ground on the choke, being careful not to lose the little clamp, this little tiny clamp here that goes with the screw. It's easy to fall off if you've never done this before. So be very careful when taking that ground screw loose. And so once I get this screw off, then this should come off pretty nicely, I think. Okay, had to change the battery, and I'm losing the light. But anyway, I got this this linkage loose after taking that screw loose. Where's my finger? Okay, and I put it back on just so I wouldn't lose things. Before I took the top off, I exercised the throttle to see if the accelerator pump was working, and it was. So that just leaves one little tiny clip here that is easy to lose. So I'm going to use this cute little tool I bought on the internet, this little spring hook tool, to get that clip loose and hopefully not drop it, because that would be hard to replace if I lost that clip. And of course I'm protecting my choke screw and clamp. And I wanted to mention this line here. This is special line, I forget the name of it, but yellow and it's clear. And on my boat I just got this old nasty plastic one, but this goes from the Carter fuel pump up to the port on the top of the carburetor. And the idea is if your fuel pump fails, it squirts the fuel, instead of it going in the bilge, it squirts the fuel into the top of the carburetor, and you get real black smoke coming out, or not running at all. And that could be my problem, so I have to check this now that I got that loose. But I'm planning to replace this plastic line with this stuff. This is the wrong diameter, and I'm going to measure the diameter here in a minute. Tell you how many millimeters it is. Let me pause the camera while I measure that. Looks like 5 millimeters would be perfect, and this is probably 1 or 2 millimeters. And so I'm going to order some of this in 5 millimeter. I forget the name of the stuff, but it's soft and durable and resistant to fuel. Somebody on the internet told me the name of it. That's how I got this for my moped. So next thing, I'm going to take that little keeper loose and not lose it. And I'll get that off in just a minute. I'm going to pause the camera for that. Sorry about the bad lighting. Okay, it's probably easier to get this off with the carburetor on the workbench where you won't drop it into the engine. So it's another thing to consider whether you want to decide to try to do this with the car. And so I got it loose. I'm going to replace this float and check everything while I got it out of the boat. And adjust the float height. And the fuel looks perfect. I don't see any contamination in there, or dirt, or anything like that, since I rebuilt it about 6 months ago. So, and the accelerator pumps seem to be fine. So I'm going to take this inside to change that float, or I may do it here. I don't know. I'm going to think about this. I always worry about dropping parts when I work in this environment compared to inside where I might have better lighting. Anyway, I'm going to go get the brass float, and this pin just comes out to slip this out, and so that's what I'm doing. Okay, I got this. I pulled that pin, and the needle pulled out here, dropped out, and I got the float and shaking it. I don't hear any water or any gas. The way you check these is you weigh them. That's the best way to see if they're compromised or not, as you weigh them, because you can't, they're pretty light, you can't really tell with them loose like that. Anyway, I want to get the new thing in, put it back together. I don't want to mess around with this thing too much. Just want to get the brass one in and go from there. And again, lighting is bad, but this is the Venturi assembly, and it's held in place with 3 screws. What happens is if you rebuild this carburetor and you fail to, there's some brass tubes in here, so you want to take this loose and clean the little tiny holes, because I've had that happen before where I got this far into it and didn't pull the Venturis apart, and there was contamination in those little brass tubes, and it just won't ever idle right if it's like that. And I'm pretty sure we're okay here because I don't see any contamination in here. Plus there's a check ball in there and a spring under the Venturi. In the old style, the check ball's in here. In the new style, it's in there, and this is a new style So beware of the Venturis if you do this rebuild. Doesn't look like there's much here, but it's got to be right. Okay, I've got my nice new brass float here from Mike's Carburetor Parts, 438 North Market Boulevard, Chalitas, Washington 98532. The phone number is 888-689-9758. This is a FL43. This is mikescarb.com. They got con on the thing instead of com. Whew, I'll have to call them, tell them about that. Alright, and there's an adjustment here, and I'll probably just throw this in, do a quick adjustment. You bend this little metal tab, and because I want to get this together before sunset, and I'm running out of daylight, so I gotta hurry. Stop talking so much on the video. I knew I'd regret doing this in the boat. I was trying to put the brass float in and seat it on the needle, and the spring flipped it into the bilge. So now I got to find it. It's down the bilge somewhere, and I can't put it together without it. So a little drama to this video. Dun, da, da, da. Hi, this is Dennis Seatsma, Homestead, Florida, in the Redland agricultural area. This is my project powerboat, a 1989 Beretta Success 200, 20-foot bow rider. Last time video segment, I was working on the carburetor to install a brass float, and I finished that. Unfortunately, I had dropped the needle and seat into the bilge, and I had another one, so there's a difference. One has a spring and the other one doesn't, and the tolerances are different, so I need to be aware of that. But anyway, I set the tolerances, put it back together, and no improvement. So somebody on the Facebook group said, why don't you take the electric choke and set it all the way open and see how it runs, see if that gets rid of the ridge condition, and it did. So either I made an amateur mistake and forgot to connect the wire to the electric choke, or it came off, or there's a problem with it. But I'm going to leave it open for now, and I washed the boat today, so it should be a little cleaner. And of course my engine box is Kuza board and 1-inch Divinycell. And all the upholstery has been replaced in the boat, and instead of wood we used expanded PVC for the upholstery. And now I finally think I got it to the point where you just turn the key and it starts. And it does, even without the choke. So let's see what happens when we put it in gear. Put it right into gear. Alright, I think I got it fixed now. I hope. Oops, should have disconnected the battery charger before I started it. That was my bad. I hate making mistakes like this. But anyway, I think I finally got it. And these engine box seats for the back seats on the port and starboard are also 1/2-inch Kuza board instead of plywood. The deck is 1-inch Divinycell H80 that I did in years ago in I think it was 2009. I did the stringers and sole plate in 2009 or 2007. I can't remember which. No, on that. 1997. Okay. Yeah, even further back. 1997. And I replaced the bolsters on the side with 1/2-inch expanded PVC because I got tired of the wood rotting out. We decided not to upholster it because this is mainly a fishing boat or a lobstering boat. and I may worry about aesthetics later, but most of the trouble in this boat I inflicted myself. In 2013 I was seeing bubbles in the fuel that I was concerned about, so I tried to replace the fuel pickup tube that I thought had pinholes in it, and it may or may not have, I don't know, but anyway, ended up having to pull up the deck and replace the fuel tank, which was a good thing because when I did that I discovered I had bad vent and fuel line. So I replaced the fill and fuel line, and I replaced the two-part foam with new foam under the deck, and I put it all back together again, and I thought it was good. And then the gasket on the Moeller Reed type fuel sender failed. The gasket right here at the fuel level sender, and it let contamination get in the tank, which I think was powdered gel coat and water. Amazing how much got in there from that little gasket failure. But anyway, contaminated the fuel tank, had to pump the gas out of the tank and refill it a dozen, 2 dozen times, and change the fuel filter multiple times. Thought I had it fixed, and then the vent line failed, and I think the two-part foam squeezed down the vent line. So if I had to do these fuel and vent line again, I would plumb them in Schedule 40 or Schedule 80 PVC, and I would use plumber sweeps so the lines are replaceable without having to bring the deck up or mess with the foam, and so the foam can't crush the lines. But anyway, so I ran a new vent line, and that seemed to solve it. I ran it the most direct way this time. Instead of going into the deck, I just went through the out of the back of there's a not a firewall, but there's a wall there under the deck. Came through that and ran it directly to the tank for the vent. Seems to be a lot better now. When I fell off at the gas station, it vented a lot better. And I had more contamination in the fuel, and I'm not sure where that came from. It might have been from that vent line that went bad. Anyway, pumped more gas out. Got all. The MerCarb was contaminated and had that gel coat powder. So I changed all the filters. I pulled the carburetor, rebuilt the carburetor myself. Used the videos from Mike's carburetor, and got it all back together. Thought it was good, and it was running real rich and following the spark plugs, and I didn't know what it was. And also I had replaced this yellow wire here for the points, and instead of using a ring terminal, I used a spade terminal, and the spade terminal kept popping off the points. So when I realized that error, because I tested it with a continuity tester, I saw the points weren't solid when I was cranking it through. So we replaced that spade terminal with a ring terminal on this ignition wire for the points, and that solved that problem. I haven't put the pointless ignition in here yet. That's future. Did an oil change. I noticed a leak from the seawater elbow from the rubber parts. I went to change the rubber parts and change the flapper when I found the seawater elbow needed replacement. So I replaced that too. So I got all new parts, new seawater elbow. I replaced most of the plugs. One time I rebuilt the MerCarb, I didn't go as deep as the Venturis, and that was a mistake. You need to pull the Venturis. There's 3 screws holding them, and clean the little brass tubes, the little tiny holes, or you won't get a good idle like this, good smooth idle like you have right now. I may just leave that choke the way it is, open all the time. It doesn't seem to make any difference on how it starts. So anyway, like I say, most of the problems I caused myself, one way or the other, except for maybe the failed gasket on the fuel level sender. I don't know how that happened. maybe, because the tank came from Sunshine Marine with that gasket in there, and it was pressure tested, so I don't know, maybe they didn't use a good gasket. Maybe they used brand X at I've been meaning to call him, but I haven't called him yet. Tell him about that. That happened years ago anyway, so maybe it was just a single problem. So anyway, I think I got it now. I think I'm ready for the next sea trial. Pretty happy with how it starts and runs now. Seems to be fine. And in all the battle, I changed out the controls and went with this Commander, Quicksilver Commander 4000 MPC 4000 Generation 2 with the Generation 2 cables. And while they were in there, the stern drive place, USA Powder Boat, said I did a lousy job, and the U-joint was leaking, so they replaced all that and did a new gimbal bearing, and so I ended up with a lot bigger bill than I planned for when I planned just to do the controls. It ended up being